Welcome to another video about lanterns. This is going to be a short video about the differences in quality between the American-made Dietz Lanterns and the current production Chinese-made Dietz Lanterns. On the left in the green is a Chinese-made Dietz Air Pilot lantern, and on the right in black paint is an American-made Dietz Streamline D-Light. These lanterns are basically the same model. The Streamline D-Light was introduced in 1938, and if I recall correctly, it was revised in 1958 and became the Air Pilot, which is still in production today. The only real difference between the Air Pilot and the Streamline D-Light is in the size of the globe. The founts are the same, the air tubes are the same, the burner is the same. This video is not going to be so much about design though, we're just looking at the actual construction of these lanterns. The truth is, between the old American-made ones that were made in New York and the current ones which are made in mainland China, there isn't a whole lot of difference in the quality. They use the same gauge steel, the same gauge wires for the bail. The materials are basically the same, but you are going to see some very minor details that are different. One of the most obvious ones is, if you look at the older one, the stamping is much more clearly defined, as the tooling was still new back then. Now that they've been making them for, over half a century, the stamping is not so clearly defined, and this is very visible on the ribs on the air tubes. Another difference is you can see where the slots in the ventilator are punched out. That is a nice clean punch on the old New York version. And if we look over here at the Chinese version, you can see it's not so clean. There's a little bit of waviness in that punch. And if we look here where the lift lever latch is, this piece of metal is welded to the air tube in a much more substantial fashion. Whereas on the Chinese version, you have a much cleaner joint where it's just been electrically welded on the back, so you can't really see it from the front. Another very small detail difference between these is on the Chinese production lanterns, the bail is just stuck into a hole that's punched into the air tube. And if we look over here at the American-made one, we've got the same hole, but we've also got a small bushing that fits into that hole that the bail goes into. You can also see that on the old New York versions, the globe is made of pressed glass, and there's a seam visible on the side of the globe. Whereas on the Chinese versions, I believe they have spun glass globes, but both globes are just made of regular soda glass. These are not borosilicate glass globes. So there's not really any real difference in quality between them. One point that is in favor of the current production Chinese ones is generally the paint is thicker and better quality than what I've seen on the New York produced lanterns. And as regards this particular model, that is pretty much every difference between them. You really have to be looking close to spot any differences in quality between these. But as I've seen, the Air Pilot is the best quality of the current production. Some of the other models don't stand up as well, and we're going to take a look at that in just a moment. So next in line we have the Dietz Comet. The Chinese production version is over here on the left, it's green again. And the New York version is over here in red paint. And between these two lanterns, there is a much bigger difference in the build quality. And there's also a big difference in the design. When I looked at them up close, I noticed that the New York version and the Chinese version don't actually use the same tooling at all. This one was produced on completely different tooling than the American version. So for example, when we look at the ventilator, we have a different pattern of vent holes on the American version and on the Chinese version. The Chinese version also has a rising cone burner. The American version does not. You also see a difference in quality here where the air tube joins the top of the fount. That joint is not so clean on the Chinese versions. And you can see essentially the same thing is true where the air tube joins the heat exchanger on top. You can also see that the crimped edge of the air tube isn't done as neatly as it is on the old American version. Once again, the paint quality on the Chinese version is actually probably better than on the American version. The American paint tends to char on these. You usually find the Comet with discolored paint on the ventilator, if it's ever been used. I have noticed that recently it doesn't seem that anybody has the Dietz Comet in stock. And this particular one was purchased over 10 years ago. I have seen a few examples in photos online and in other videos, and I think the quality has declined on the Comet since then. And it's possible that's not in production anymore simply because the tooling has worn out. I may be wrong on that, but I have not seen anybody that has any in stock right now, and I have a feeling it's probably not going to come back. And last, here is a Hong Kong made Dietz lantern. This is a Dietz Junior. I don't actually have an American or a Chinese version of this lantern currently. They made a ton of these at the Hong Kong factory for decades. It is basically identical in build quality to the American lanterns. I really can't see any difference between them. It's also got the pressed glass globe with the Dietz logo molded into it, and you see the seam running down the side just like on the American versions. So there you have it. I see a lot of people say that the Chinese versions are poorly made and they're shoddy. That might be true for certain models. It's not true for all of the models. I think you really have to be nitpicky to find issues with the construction of the current production for most of them. But all of them are basically the same as they always have been. Most of the issues that we do see in construction are just because they've been produced for so many decades. If you have both American and Chinese versions of any of these lanterns and you've noticed some sort of difference between the two, I'd be happy to hear about it. These are just my personal observations from the examples I have on hand. So I might have overlooked something, or maybe you have some that are better or worse constructed than the examples I do.